how to do all of these problems. We're going to start on page 7. So remember, yesterday we talked about equivalent fractions, fractions that are worth the same amount. So when I look at these examples today, I'm going to be thinking about equivalent fractions, fractions that are worth the same amount. Good morning, Matthew. And using them in word problems to figure out what's reasonable, what makes sense. So it says, study the example problem. Underline 2 parts that you think make a particularly good answer and a helpful example. So just like we did last week, we saw an example page. We highlighted some things that were super important that helped us understand the answer. It says Arlene drew circles Y and Z. She separated Y into 4ths. She separated Z into 8ths. She shaded 3 parts of Y, and she shaded Z to show a fraction equivalent to Y. Arlene said, both circles have 3 parts that are shaded. That means the fractions are equivalent. They're the same, 3/4 and 3/8. What did Arlene do right? And what did she do wrong? So let's look at these circles. I don't want to look at the answer yet. I just want to figure it out for myself. What's something that you notice about these circles that she did correctly? What did she do correctly with these circles? Think about the pizza problems we've done before, how we had a small pizza and a large pizza. Do we have a small pizza and large pizza here, or are they the same size? Good job, Luis. Yes, they are the same size. Very good, Daniela. Absolutely, they're the same. So that's a thing she did correctly. They're both the same size. Because remember, we talked about how if you have a small pizza and a large pizza, you can't compare the pieces of pizza because they're part of a different size pizza. So she made both circles the same size, which is great. What's something else she did correctly? Go ahead, Luis.
She put them in the right order because she said that there's 3.
Hi, Lily.
Which is correct.
Yes, absolutely. She said there were 3 of the 4 parts shaded. That is correct. She said there are 3 of the 8 parts shaded, and that's also correct. And I also noticed, good job, Luis, that these 4 pieces are the same size. All of these 8 pieces are the same size. Rodolfo, please pay attention and set whatever that is down. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. So she made all the pieces the same size. The pizzas are the same size. And she did correctly shade 3 of each pieces. Now, where did she go wrong? She says that 3/4 is the same as 3/8. Is that correct? No, look how much this is. If these were 2 pizzas and I got to eat 3/4 of this pizza, waka, 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 looks like Pac-Man, and 3/8 of this pizza, I'm going to want 3/4. I'm hungry. And that pizza looks delicious. And I would get way more pizza with 3/4 than 3/8. Because here, I only have to share with 4 people. I'm going to get a bigger piece. Here, I have to share with 8 people. That means I get a smaller piece of pizza. So the less people I share with, the bigger my piece is. The more people I share with, the smaller my piece is going to be. So she does have 3/4 and she does have 3/8, but they are not the same amount. 3/4 is much bigger than 3/8. All right, let's scroll down here to her answer and figure out what she did that we really like. Arlene correctly made equal parts in both circles. She named the correct fractions for the parts that are shaded. Her mistakes were shading only 3 parts of Z. The shading in both circles must cover the same amount of the whole to show equivalent fractions. Arlene should have shaded 6 parts to show that 6/8 is equivalent to 3/4. So here, they fixed her answer. They said the same thing we did. She made equal parts, which is great. She named the correct fractions, which is great, but they weren't worth the same amount. When I look at this one, this amount here is now worth the same as this amount here. Whoops. Let me try that again. Here we go. Because if I were to take this piece and put it on top of this piece, it would be the same amount. So on page 8, that's what we are going to work on. Your job on this page is to highlight what I highlighted here. Go ahead and make sure you have that highlighted. Go ahead and type done when you're ready to move to page 8. Okay, looks like a couple of us might still be highlighting. Leave it up for another second. All right, let's look at page 8. So now there's a big word problem here for us to solve. It says, solve the problem. Use what you learned in the example. Shelley drew squares A and B to show equivalent fractions. She said, I separated square A into 2 equal parts and square B into 8 equal parts. Then I shaded 2 parts of A. I shaded 4 parts of B, so fraction. Since B has more equal parts, I doubled the number of shaded parts. What did Shelley do right? And what did she do wrong? So looking at this, I want us to think about it first. Looking at these. What's something she did correctly? What's something she did incorrectly? So think about it for a second. Go ahead, Rodolfo. All right. So now let's start answering this question. She says that A and B are equal. So I want you to think, is she correct or incorrect? So we're going to start with, oops, my camera went off, sorry. Shelley says that 2 halves equals 4 eighths. She is and I want you to decide, is she correct or incorrect? Are those 2 things worth the same amount? Something she did right is something she did wrong is 2 halves is equivalent to how many eighths? I'm going to zoom out so you can see the example and what I wrote here. So Shelly says 2 halves equals 4 eighths. She is correct or incorrect. You do not have to type both. You are going to tell me what you think. If you think she's correct, you're going to say correct. If you think she's incorrect, you're going to say incorrect. You're still, whether you think she's right or wrong, you still have to tell me something she did right and something she did wrong. And then at the end, you have to tell me what is 2 halves actually equivalent to with eighths. So think about if I have 2 halves covered, how many eighths would have to be shaded in? So I can draw my picture down here as well. I'm going to just grab 2 squares here. 1, 2. Actually, I'm just going to grab 1 and make it bigger and then duplicate it so they're the same size. So here's one of my shapes. Now I'm going to duplicate it. So on this one, I'm going to show halves just like she did. And on this one, I'm going to show eighths. And then I want 2 halves equals how many eighths? Because it wants us to show it in words and pictures. So 2 halves, I'm going to shade in these 2 with my highlighter. Here's 1 half. Here's 2 halves. Oops. How many eighths would be equal to that? And then shade that in to show it. If you want your square to be a different color other than orange, like how mine is, you can click it and then change the color here. You just probably don't want it to be white, so that way you can still see it. Like you can change it to like gray or something so that it's a little bit lighter. So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to work on that. I want to see what you can do. She says 2 halves is the same as 4 eighths. Are those worth the same amount? If I have both halves covered here on this side, I'll probably want all of it covered here too, right? So that it shows the same amount. Now they show the same amount. They show that all of the pieces are covered. So what fraction is this showing? This is your independent piece. This is what your teacher is grading. When you are done, you have written what she did right, what she did wrong, if she's correct or incorrect, and how many eighths it's equal to, and drawn your picture. You're going to press the green check mark to turn it in. Now, this is a long problem, but this is a problem 3rd graders at the end of the year are expected to do. So I want you to do your best. I'm going to give you about 5 to 10 minutes to work on this. Go ahead. So remember, in a couple of minutes, this has to be turned in. Think about how many eighths does it take to cover the same amount as 2 halves? Type in the chat when you are done. When you are done and ready to press the green check mark and turn it in. So remember, when you finish all 8 pages, you're going to turn it in, and that's what your teacher is going to grade. That's your math grade for today and yesterday. Okay. So when you finish, go ahead and press the green check mark, turn it in. You need to write all of this and draw those pictures if you haven't already. If you're still working, I'm going to give you about 4 more minutes and then a 2-minute break. So that means at 9:47, we are going to start our reading assignment. Okay, 9:47. So this is your last couple of minutes to finish up this page, get it turned in, take a snack break, water break, bathroom break, and then we will start reading. So you can go ahead and start pulling up your reading assignment whenever you finish this one. All right, last minute to finish this up and press that green check mark. If you still need more time or if you need my example, go ahead and take a screenshot. That'll save it as a picture to your Chromebook.